all for being here. Thank you to the DI folks for inviting me back. It's always great to be back in Boston. And I was also glad that I think some of the machine learning algorithms that were used to predict weather seemed to be off this morning, and there wasn't 10 inches of snow on the ground, and I was able to make it in from New York. So as Shane mentioned, I lead a data science product team at Viacom, and so my team has also had quite a journey in becoming the team that it is today. So I lead a really talented group of people that are probably a lot smarter than I am as well. They are a mix of data scientists and product designers and UX practitioners that really have brought us into the forefront of bringing data science integrated into Viacom's strategy. And what we've really been working towards is blending the art of the creative and the tools that we can use building AI products through data science to understand where audiences are, how we can bring better content to our audiences, and how we can work with all of the brands to create a better consumer experience. And our journey into AI has been a recent one. And so when I really started thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to actually start from the very beginning. And to really understand kind of where we are in AI today, I think it makes sense to really kind of talk about where the conversation first started, because people have been actually talking about AI since the 50s. This is something that was developed in mid-century when Alan Turing really proposed the idea and asked the question of, can machines think? John McCarthy, who's also a great thinker and one of the forefathers of computer science, he really coined the term artificial intelligence to frame a way to define machine intelligence as machines that can actually do what humans can do. And in 1958, Arthur Samuel was the one that really postulated the idea of machine learning and framing that as an approach to AI. So machine learning is really one approach in terms of teaching machines using data to really get to this level of intelligence that can be exhibited and can do the things that humans do. And then finally, kind of in parallel to all of this, in 1965, this was really the start and advent of modern computing. So Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel, this was when he postulated his law, where basically the processing power of computers would really double every 2 years. And so this was really groundbreaking in terms of setting the philosophical underpinnings of AI. But then in the 70s, there was actually a brief AI winter because there was a lot of false starts in the area, and there wasn't a lot of progress being made in terms of the actual technological innovations that were introduced. But then something happened in the 90s. And what that was the internet. So 1991, this was when Tim Berners-Lee and CERN opened up the internet to the world. This was when you had the dial-up, and you had a lot of these sounds actually probably aren't even familiar to people these days, but some of us can probably remember the sounds of the dial-up machine, and you actually had to get onto the internet. Fast forward to 2002, Amazon actually, that was when they piloted the AWS platform. This was the start of cloud computing, cloud architectures, and then by 2005, we crossed the landmark of 1 billion people on the internet globally. And so this was a big change. And then in 2009, we also have Andrew Ng, one of the main thinkers of AI today. He was the one that really introduced the concept of using GPUs for deep learning and really driving those efficiencies in terms of building and training these algorithms. And so it was really the confluence of all of these factors of computational power, of algorithmic advancement, and of technology scale that has really led to the milestone achievements that we see in AI today. So some of the things that Ricard mentioned in his talk as well. In 2011 we see Watson win Jeopardy. In 2014, Alexa becomes mainstream. 2017, that was when AlphaGo defeated Lee Sedol, and subsequently was actually defeated by even newer AI technologies. And then we come together to where we are today. And so these are all really large, headline-grabbing milestones, but they're not necessarily usable at scale yet. But the thing is that today, consumer experiences have been fundamentally changed by AI, and 85% of Americans use something that touches AI every day, whether or not they realize it. And so AI really has become embedded and transformed the consumer experience. So especially in the content industry, the way that you experience content, the way that you share content, the way that you discover content is all informed and driven through AI. So even starting from really early on, AI was used to help block content that you didn't want to see through spam filtering. When you go onto Spotify, you have AI that helps you with discovering new music and discovering new music that's pared down to your tastes. I don't even need to tell you that when you go into Google, your search results are going to be different from mine, are going to be different from everyone else's here in the room, because Google is using all of that data to really drive the right results to you when you're doing that search. Even consumer brands, so Stitch Fix, for example, even the clothes that you wear can be determined by AI, because there's a lot of tools that can be used to understand your preferences and to really improve those types of recommendations. And then finally, AI is also changing the way that you even interact with brands. So this is an example of a brand activation that Paramount did when we launched the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. There was a chatbot where you could actually interact with the turtles, and so that was pretty cool. But even beyond where we go even beyond the consumer experience, AI is fundamentally changing the nature of the way that we work. Every day when you go into work, in terms of the tools that we use, AI is completely changing the workflow, building new efficiencies, and also just introducing new tools and new ways of interacting with each other. So for example, one of the examples in terms of the tools that we now have is, Google has this Explore feature that actually tries to predict what you're trying to do with data. So in the spreadsheets that you're using, it actually looks at your data and says, hey, did you see these insights? You might want to use these charts, things like that. And it's actually learning what you're doing to understand how you can actually drive that even further. With X.AI, they've created this automated assistant that actually you can speak to, and X.AI will actually help you with things like scheduling meetings and kind of driving all of those efficiencies so that you don't have to actually have those conversations. They can actually do it for you. And then finally, this is an example of a tool that we've built in-house that actually is a chatbot that introduces conversational analytics. So even beyond kind of coming to our team and speaking to a data scientist, you can actually just speak to a chatbot and actually really get quick insights and analytics on the fly, and then actually ask deeper questions and get to more creative solutions, because you can get these insights really quickly and really accurately just through chat. And it's also really natural to embed because of the way that we can actually use platforms like Slack in order to deploy these solutions. And so what we really see is that we're moving towards this realm of data-driven and AI-driven decision-making at the organization level at large. And so, AI is really going to start driving decisions that humans used to make, whether it's, within just the content and media and advertising space in terms of driving forward strategy around advanced advertising, around understanding where our audiences are and being able to quickly and easily segment, identify, and really target individuals based on what they're going to like and what content is going to drive that engagement, to even municipalities. So for example, New York City, one of the things that they've actually implemented is they're using machine learning to predict where fires are going to start in the city and to actually be proactive and preemptive about policies. And then finally, as Ricard mentioned, AI is going to augment our own creativity because it's going to open up new worlds that we have never even seen before. It's going to open, new types of content and new mediums that we aren't even aware of today. Even now, it's creating sounds that we've never heard before. It's creating recipes and tastes that we've never tasted before. It's creating pictures that we've never seen before. It's creating stories that we've never read before. And so, AI is really going to help drive forward human creativity and imagination because it's going to help us to think in ways that we've never even explored and help us to see these creative blind spaces and identify the opportunities there. So how can businesses really navigate in this AI-driven future that we're all moving towards? So for me, it really comes down to three main areas of priority that organizations and leaders really need to focus and understand in order to be prepared for this AI-driven future. So first is going to be the data. Everything is going to start and end with the data because the machine learning algorithms that you train are only as good as the data that you train them on. Because without the data, the machine knows nothing. And so, it's really going to be a burden on the data in order to create the tools that are going to have the impact. And so you also need to understand, where is your competitive advantage in your space in terms of the data? Do you have, where are the issues in terms of getting access to data? What are the implications and limitations and biases that you need to be aware of? So having a cohesive data strategy that really is going to set that path forward is really, really critical. But then the second piece is once you have the data, you need the individuals, you need the talent, you need the teams that are really going to change the way that your organization is going to be able to leverage that data and build the AI tools that you're going to need. And what I mean by this, by the way, is not just expanding your headcount so then you have tons of machine learning engineers and data scientists. Those people are really important in bringing your company forward, but you also need the UX practitioners, the designers, the people that are going to understand how to create the UX around AI. And then at the same time, you also need the strategists and the business development that's going to understand how is this going to bring impact to your business? How is it going to fit into your values? How is it going to impact your stakeholders? And so you really need to have a diverse organization that is literate in the tools that are being created, in the data that is being used. And then finally, the last point that I want to bring up, and this could easily take up a whole hour, is really just the ethics around AI. Back to the limitations and biases, data is generated by humans, right? And humans, we all have biases. And so that is also going to become embedded in the algorithms that are created. There are several examples of AI that has definitely has reflected biases that that are not great in terms of what we see within our society, and we should be transparent about that. We need to understand how to build the corporate ethics around how we govern these. We need to understand how this is going to affect public policy, and we also need to understand how we're going to build these technologies in a responsible way so that it's something that aligns with your core values as an organization. It aligns with the message that you want to bring with your brand. And so actually, I want to wrap up by really just saying that with AI and the future that we're all moving towards, this is a future that we are building today. So the technologists, the computer scientists, the designers, the product managers, the CEOs, everybody in this room and beyond, the people here today are the ones that are building this future that we're moving to. And so my hope really is that we're moving to a future where we live at the intersection of imagination and intelligence, where we're really augmenting the human experience through AI, and we're realizing the challenges, but also creating a better world in which we're creating tools that help us to interact with each other, help us to understand the world, and help us to really unleash our creative potential. So thank you guys, and I can take questions.
Thank you so much.
Oh, hi.
Hi. So going back to your slide on you showed a slide where the Google AI was able to produce artworks. And my question is, to what extent do you think we can actually shape AI so that it can be complementary to human creativity as opposed to replacing human creativity?
So actually, that Google example, what they do is they can actually transfer artistic style, but they're not creating. So for example, if you take two images, you can actually transfer the style of one image onto another. And I would say, in terms of replacing human creativity, the thing is, for now, I think that we're at a point where AI really can take everything it can take all of the data that exists in the world. So it can take all of the images, for example, from the Met and ingest that and use computer vision to process all of that. And so the thing is, I think that at least in terms of where we are right now, I don't see AI necessarily replacing anything in terms of creativity, but I think that it will really help to actually open new avenues of creativity for artists and for creators here. I think that it's really something where it opens up new opportunities, right? So for example, the music example, it's creating sounds and instruments that are some sort of combination of existing sounds that we know, but it's creating them in a new way such that it's a new medium that humans can manipulate. But at the same time, AI doesn't necessarily have taste, right? And beauty is in the eye of the beholder sometimes. And so I think that in terms of actually creating these, creating cultural trends and things like that, I think humans will still, definitely have an impact in terms of driving, cultural trends forward and creating the creative products that define kind of how we are as a society.
Here.
Hi.
Hi. So, just specific to media, how do you convince people to listen to you in an industry that is so traditional and driven by creatives and things that are not necessarily based in data? Have you had that problem, and how do you overcome it?
I mean, that might have been a problem maybe, I would say even 5 years ago. I think that it's a reality that that can't be denied anymore. That data and machine learning and AI are really transforming, the media industry and the content industry overall. And I would say that in terms of convincing people to listen, I would say it's less of a battle of that now and more of a battle of trying to figure out how to prioritize all of the projects and all of the different asks that we actually have in terms of, can data do this? Can we build a tool that does that? Can you actually build a recommendation engine for this? There's a huge appetite for this now because it's really just undeniable in terms of, the potential that data has and the impact that data and machine learning have already had in terms of disrupting the industry. So.
Hi, thank you so much for such a great presentation. I have two questions. So how much of the AI development is bound with the GPU development? So do you think that it depends how faster will GPU develop in the future? And the second question, do you see any substitute to the GPUs in the future?
Yeah, so my team specifically doesn't build the hardware, but there's a lot of technology companies that do, right? So for example, I know that Google just recently announced their TPUs, and they're actually going to make that available on their cloud, I think even within this year. But yeah, there's definitely going to be continued hardware advancement. I think that it's still that combination of one, the data, and then two, the hardware processing power. Because for us, as within our industry in media, because it's so fragmented, one of the biggest challenges right now is the data. And in terms of the way that distribution is moving and the way that new platforms are being born every day, right? And so it's a constant challenge to stay on top of just all of the data that you need to have in order to build something that's relevant and build something that's timely too, because even platforms that existed a couple years ago, and that were really big, things like Vine, today are a totally different story, right? So yeah, hardware advancement definitely is going to be part of it. And it's already being done. It's definitely already being done. Yeah.
I would like to know that who is the best business leader in AI today?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, I feel like that's other than me. I mean, the thing is, for me, I think the jury's still out on this one. And I know, I mean, the thing is, I know that there's definitely iconic names, right? And some of them I've mentioned in my talk today too. But I think in terms of, for me, I care about what the impact is. And so, I think technology plays a huge role in it, and there's a lot of great people, great companies that are working on that forefront of technological advancement, and they're going to get us to that next step. For us, we care about the content, we care about our audiences, we care about our fans, and we want to make the best content that we can possibly do, make to be entertaining and bring people together. And so I think for me, the jury's still out because I want to see something where it's actually bringing people together, right? Like it's actually improving. Improving our lives in a significant way and in a disruptive way. And I think that there's a lot of good choices out there, like good contentions, and I don't want to, I think that, obviously, like Andrew Ng is, one of the biggest thinkers in this space today. But I mean, in terms of the best, I think the jury's still out on this one, and it'll, we can have a separate chat later on, and we can talk some names. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.